after Peter tells us how he ended up in that very impressive branded chair, and looking at your LinkedIn this morning, you've had a few twists and turns that maybe you weren't expecting.
Yeah, that's not inaccurate. So I kind of got here somewhat similarly to Jess. Like I was agency side prior to working at MLSE, and this is actually what I would probably call my first client side gig. But prior to that, I actually had no aspirations to get into marketing in the first place. I had gone back to grad school kind of on a completely different path for media and cinema studies. And I was actually going through like PhD applications and whatnot when I was also like, trying to support myself working at a restaurant at the same time, just trying to make ends meet. And then I was like, okay, I kind of need a job that would like actually use my brain a little bit and push myself to apply to a bunch of different stuff. And I wound up landing at a digital agency in Chicago and found that I really took to it. So I kind of just like careened right off the highway into agency land and really stuck with that for a number of years. That's actually what brought me to Toronto in the first place, as I kind of moved from our Chicago office to our Toronto office, and then developed a specialty as a content strategist, a digital content strategist, and took that to a few different places, even here in Toronto. Was just previously at an agency called Huge before coming to MLSE, where I was kind of overseeing a bit of the content strategy practice in the office, and was like loving it. But I'm also a big sports guy. So when the opportunity did kind of open up to move to MLSE and take on more of a generalist role in a digital strategy function, I was really quite keen to take that on. And so I came in kind of just working on the Raptors side of the business before moving up to the director position. And I have found that like actually having that specialty, that specialist background has been pretty invaluable in a lot of my day-to-day. I think that MLSE is a really powerful organization, and the people who work here are really, really sharp, and they come from such a variety of backgrounds, and that kind of pastiche of skill sets is what makes it a very strong organization to kind of work with.
I guess you're working with being across all the teams. You're working with very different identities, histories, level of success, monetization. I mean, taking an overall umbrella view, as you obviously have to, what do you do? Do you have heads over each of the teams that you will then get together as once, twice a week? How do you sort of coordinate it all?
Sure. So my team is structured in a little bit of a weird way, because I think I mentioned before, we're a central service. So we wind up servicing all of the different front offices across the business, but you can't manage digital content in a unilateral sense like that. It just doesn't really work. So we do have people dedicated to specific brands. And then they roll up into what we call like a red team and a blue team model. So it kind of just works out that we have two teams that are red and two teams that are blue. And it works quite well to reorganize ourselves against that. So I have a digital content strategy lead for red team and a lead for blue team. And they help organize all of the content managers and content coordinators underneath them who are dedicated to specific brands. So on red team, I have a red team lead. They oversee a content manager for the Raptors and Raptors 905. Similarly, there's another content manager who oversees TFC.
Do you feel under pressure, being that the digital side has been put under such pressure and scrutiny and arguably advanced? Somebody said to me on a webinar I was on just as a viewer a couple of weeks ago, was saying they felt that what's been achieved in 3 months was probably what was being anticipated over the next decade. Are the little feet going very, very quickly under the surface to try and stay up?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about scary moments, like I'll just talk about day one of the COVID hiatus, when I'm looking around the business, like from my home office, obviously, I'm looking around the business and seeing like, can't do anything. Oh, but digital is still on. And everyone's kind of like looking at us like, what are you guys going to do? So yeah, it was pretty horrifying to just be like, okay, how do we like plug back into the business and help support things that we've never done before? Not that like we weren't plugged in with partnerships or other aspects of the business, but when it's the only channel, all of a sudden everybody's looking at digital as an option, and we need to figure out quite quickly how to strategically handle those conversations. And like we had some missteps. We were kind of testing and learning as fast as we can, but yeah, I've kind of jokingly said to a number of people that in some ways, even without any sports actually on the go right now, we've never been busier as a team.
And I guess you're treading a fine line at all times, and this has been reflected in conversations with New York Red Bulls, with Atlanta United as well, between the commercial side of things, but also the empathy needed with a city, with a population, with all those supporters who need support themselves, who are also feeling pretty helpless. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's totally fair, and it's a fine balance to kind of walk a lot of the times. I kind of think of it in a number of different ways, right? Because you need to always maintain a visibility on what's going on in your digital content channels to know how to respond. And typically, in a moment of crisis like the COVID-19 pandemic, the best place to start is really just like, don't be afraid to just kind of like shut it all down and slowly rebuild back up. Like, start with your basics, get your minimum viable product out, like shut down your paid marketing, shut down all of your BAU content or like business as usual content, and just focus on what you need to do in the next 24 hours, then extend it to 48, then extend it to 72, and start to rebuild while keeping an eye kind of like in parallel on what that content strategy starts to reshape into. The empathy thing is really tricky because it's easy to kind of forget that even though we're representing teams that become kind of pillars and fixtures in our community, we're also still not the place that people turn to immediately in a moment of crisis like that. So you need to always balance, like, what is the message that you need to get out into market? And is it also what people are kind of coming to you for? And if it's not the right time or the right message, maybe wait a day, check the pulse tomorrow, and making sure that you're always kind of just trying to connect as best you can with what those fan needs are in your digital channels. Because at the same time, especially in social, people are coming to these channels to connect with each other, not always just with the team. And there are actually benefits sometimes to not trying to participate in a conversation as much as there are to participate.